No, 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 Batman's dad. Hello and welcome to Daddy Issues, the podcast where we talk about father issues from media, from movies, from TV shows, from books, from comic books that make us cry, that make us miss our fathers, I guess. My name's Dominic Archer, and with me, as always, is David Bryan. Hello, David. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, Dom. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm annoyed that I messed up the intro twice, but no one needs to know about it. It's
no
fine.
No one's ever going to hear
fine.
that. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
It mysteriously shows up somewhere on the internet. No one's ever going to find out.
Yeah, which if I know Steve, our editor, definitely fucking will. But what's been going on with you this week? Did you see your dad this week?
Not this week. No, I didn't see my dad this week. I've not seen him for maybe a couple of weeks now. It's kind of sad, isn't it?
That is a little bit sad, but
I
then I
don't
haven't
have the excuse. Yeah, I don't have the excuse you have, where you're thousands and thousands of miles away.
Yes, I haven't seen my dad in months. Away. Yeah. But it's okay. I don't miss him or anything.
Oh.
No, I do miss him. I talk to my dad all the time. He's always sending me a message about something ridiculous, so that's good. Yesterday, he sent me a big message about how amazing it was that China is progressing so fast. So I turned around and slapped him.
You don't know, Dad.
Yeah. He said, I watched a TED Talk. It was really good. It spoke all about how quickly China's economy has developed from 20 years ago when people were living on $2 a day to now. And I said, nah, was how I responded to that.
That's a good argument. I'm sure you had nothing to come back to with that.
No, actually, yeah, we had a very interesting discussion, as we normally do. But what is our topic today, Dave? What are we going to talk about?
Today, Dom, as far as I am aware, we're talking about a father who, through no action or fault of his own, or maybe he did, who knows, spawned a vigilante crime fighter who terrorizes criminals from the shadows. Is that right? That's about right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think you hit the nail on the head there, yeah.
I'm trying to keep it vague, even though I'm sure everyone, if they've read the title of the podcast, knows what this episode's about. Yeah,
we're talking about Thomas Wayne, the father of Bruce Wayne, of Batman, and the many, many, many times that this guy has died. We've generally said to each other that we think that Thomas Wayne is probably the person who has died the most on screen. Except for like a movie like Groundhog Day, because that doesn't count, that's like a time loop. But Thomas Wayne, because there are so many different iterations of Batman, like so many different movies or cartoons or even in the comics, like Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne die in all of them. There is not a Batman movie that at some point doesn't flash back to Thomas Wayne getting shot in an alleyway. So I guess today we're going to talk about those different versions of Thomas Wayne, talk about a little bit about him as a character, I guess, which one of the movies do the most justice to the death and his lasting impact, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, but before we do that, we should, I guess, do a bit of background on Thomas Wayne. Do you want to do some background on Thomas Wayne, or shall I do a little bit?
I think you are the man most qualified for this, Dominic.
Oh well, you are far too kind. Well, I will take the general rather than going for like a specific version, because in DC Comics they reset the universe so many times that there are like 100 different versions of Thomas Wayne as well. But if we were just going to take like a standard, if we're talking about like a standard Batman, what people think of when they think of Batman, then the father of Thomas Wayne is normally a handsome, mustached man. He's always got a mustache in almost every incarnation, a thick, beautiful mustache. Because this is going back to when he was first conceived, I guess, back in the 30s and 40s, where all good men had mustaches.
All men had mustaches.
You weren't even a man. If you weren't wearing a hat or a mustache, is a mustache just a hat for the lips?
I suppose, although it's a bit harder to remove and to put back on.
Maybe.
I think that's what makes it kind of a manly endeavour, is it takes a bit of growth, patience, time, and testosterone. And without those things, it can't be done.
Now, I've been growing mustaches because my beard gets really, really patchy. I'm not very fond of it, but I'm very fond of my mustache, right? But every time I shave a mustache, whichever girl I'm with is like, "Oh oh no, I don't like mustaches. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Like, I don't want to get into a fight over a mustache, but one day, Dave, one day, I'm just gonna do it, and it's gonna be great.
For a beautiful blonde Oliver Queen mustache.
Oh, I mean, it's going to be ginger because all of my facial hair is ginger. but we're forgetting back to Thomas Wayne. So his mustache is better than mine will ever be. In the most common version of Thomas Wayne, he, like Bruce Wayne, is a millionaire or a billionaire depending upon the version. But what's special about Thomas Wayne is that while other versions. While other Waynes before him and Bruce after him kind of laud in the fact that they are millionaires, that they are the head of Wayne Enterprises, the great business that the Waynes are in charge of. Thomas Wayne forgoes all of that and studies to become a doctor. And this is where we get our first kind of feeling of, who is Thomas Wayne? Well, he's a man who is rich enough to do anything. But what he does is studies and works hard to become a doctor so that he can help people, so that he can heal people. And this is where we get the baseline for Batman's morality comes from his father, who was willing to give up everything, to give up a powerful position at the head of a conglomerate so that he could help people who were sick, who were injured. And generally, from all accounts, he was a pretty good doctor. There's a bunch of times where we have flashbacks to Thomas Wayne where lots of different characters interact with Thomas Wayne because, someone's been shot, and they always go to Thomas Wayne because he's the doctor in Gotham that everyone knows. But what's also kind of special about him is, yes, he is a doctor, but he's also a major philanthropist. And there are multiple comics and movies where they say that Thomas and Martha Wayne were really the heart and soul of Gotham, and they weren't famous. Yeah. They weren't famous because they were business people. They were famous because they used their position of power to help as many people as they could, as philanthropists as well as doctors. And they say it was often in different comics. They'll be like, the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne was what brought Gotham down to the corrupted state it is when Bruce Wayne decides to become Batman. So, yeah. So Bruce and Martha Wayne, they have a young son named Bruce who they love very much, and one day they take Bruce to a cinema. What's it called? It's called I should know this. The Monarch Theatre. They take Bruce to the Monarch Theatre to watch The Mask of Zorro. And
interesting.
Yes, they watched The Mask of Zorro because, again, this character was created in 1939, I think. So this is still during the transitional page between masked adventurers like Zorro or the Scarlet Pimpernel or someone like that, and then the superhero genre, which was only just starting to exist. So at this point, you wouldn't have gone, oh, that's a superhero. You would have just gone, Batman is a bit like Zorro or something like that. So the idea of Zorro is used as another inspiration for Bruce Wayne to put on a mask and to become Batman.
Yeah, that's interesting. I noticed that in the very first time you ever see the Wayne's death, and I think there's a cartoon in the 80s called the Superpowers Team. They come out of a cinema that's showing Robin Hood, which is not
interesting.
Which is interesting in a similar kind of masked hero who goes against crime in a different way. But yeah, it's interesting how they do that. And I was going to ask whether the Mask of Zorro was something that was taken from the original material, because of all the other instances I've seen in TV and film, it always seems to be the Mask of Zorro, or at least there's some kind of reference to the Mask of Zorro.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty consistently the Mask of Zorro. Yeah.
Except for Batman Begins, where they go to the opera instead.
Yeah, they go to the opera, yeah. So they leave the Mask of Zorro. Young Bruce Wayne is jumping around pretending to be Zorro. They take a shortcut to go down an alleyway, and when they go down the alleyway, there is the mugger, and the mugger famously kills Thomas and Martha Wayne and leaves Bruce to mourn over their bodies and flees. Who the mugger is changes in different versions, which I'm sure we'll get into. But it's after this inciting incident that Bruce Wayne goes away and becomes Batman. So where do you want to begin? Do you want to go chronologically from the versions that we've looked at, or should we just pick a favourite and go with it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I did. I kind of tried to find as many instances as I could where we've seen this on screen. I tried to focus mostly on the cartoons and on the movies. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how things are portrayed in a different way. Whether it's just because of time constraints, where they're often showed as little cutbacks or flashbacks, or like we saw in Batman vs Superman, like an opening credit sequence, almost like a montage, just to sort of throw us back up to date. But what I was really interested in was trying to see how Thomas Wayne was portrayed and his behaviour, especially in pretty much everything but except Batman Begins. Because to my memory, Batman Begins is the only one where the relationship between Thomas and Bruce Wayne is expanded a bit more, and we do get to see a lot more of the philanthropy of the Waynes and get a sense of who his father was. Whereas, like I say, everything else is like a little flashback to it, like in Batman Forever, where Bruce is standing in front of a fire and he has kind of like a little flashback, and then it's all kind of like stylized because it's in through the veil of his memory, as opposed to actually as the audience seeing it happen as if it's in real time, which is a bit more like what happens in Batman Begins. But like I know we spoke a bit about in the last episode about the Lion King, about Mufasa being this like a very heroic, strong, almost traditionally paternal, and like a role model that kind of applies to most paradigms. Whereas I really wanted to see whether that applied to Thomas Wayne, and was he a hero that you mourn as a member of the audience if you relate to Bruce character in that scene, or is there more to it? Because I found that quite often it's just a case of it's about Bruce. It's not about Thomas in these little flashback sequences. It's often just very quickly, bang bang. There are some interesting elements that transfer between so many different iterations, and you being the more of the comics expert, I wanted to ask where these things sort of come from. For example, I'll start with what's with the pearl necklace? What's with Martha's necklace, and why do we see that in nearly every iteration of his parents dying? The necklace is something that the mugger goes for, and usually it breaks, and normally the pearls fling off in the air and fall to the ground in slow motion. What's that about, Dom?
Okay, so I think the pearls, I think, touch on something really important, which is kind of what you were alluding to, and one of the things I really want to talk about is, depending upon the media in which we are seeing the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, it really changes firstly the level of brutality that is involved in their deaths, and also the amount of aggression that Thomas Wayne shows in the mugging. Because one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that, again, depending upon which one you are watching, you either have a meeker Thomas Wayne who is like, okay, let's just take this calm and deal with it, or Thomas Wayne fucking lunges for the guy. But that is a really important moment, because that shifts the responsibility of the mugging. So that I would like to get deeper into the specific ones later on. But if we compare, for example, the mugging in Batman Begins to the mugging in Batman vs Superman, we have Thomas Wayne in this particular scene is very much Christopher Nolan shows him to be a calmer, a more inspirational figure who is who when they are mugged, he seems to have a kind of understanding, because again he's always been saying to Bruce these kind of there are people who are not as fortunate as us kind of things, right? So when this mugging
he's very
happens,
empathetic.
Yes, he's empathetic to the situation. It's like, it's okay, stay calm, we're going to give you what you want, and then you can get... Because again, right, he's Thomas Wayne. The guy is a billionaire. Being mugged in the street is like, whatever, right? They'll lose the cash in their wallets. They lose the necklace. That's a shame. But ultimately, they go home they can just open the vault and they haven't really lost anything, right? So what do the Waynes have to lose in this situation? Being mugged is traumatic and it sucks, but there's no need to be aggressive because you've got nothing to lose. Once they go out the other side of the alleyway, Alfred will be there waiting for them in the car. So great, Alfred will... It's not like they have to struggle to get home, right? So you have the calm Thomas Wayne who in Batman Begins, and the mugger panics and shoots them both. We can therefore say that Joe Chill, the mugger, is the one who is to blame. Then if we swing that across... Oh, and then there are later things in Batman Begins that say it was an assassination or whatever, but forgetting about that. If we switch that across to Batman vs. Superman, we have Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who never plays a good guy. Like, when you see Jeffrey Dean Morgan, you instantly go, he's going to try and kill someone, isn't he? Like, it's just his character.
Even in the couple of rom-coms he's been in.
Yeah, or even in the Losers, right? In the Losers, he's kind of meant to be the good guy, and
he's just a cool, badass leader guy.
Yeah, but he's still going to kill everyone. He's still dangerous. Yeah. That's why he's the leader of the Losers, right? So when you see Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne, and they become mugged. Thomas Wayne lunges towards Joe Chill to try and, beat him up, I guess.
Yeah.
But that shifts the responsibility. Then it's not the mugger who... Obviously, the mugger shot them, so, he's still a murderer. But Thomas Wayne not
antagonized.
Yes, exactly. Had Thomas Wayne not gone to attack him, it could have gone in a different way. Or we've seen so many bloody different versions of it. I guess that it was always going to end that way anyway, I suppose. But if we take those scenes, in particular, and analyze them, then the behavior of Thomas Wayne really does shift. Who should Bruce blame for the death of his father, which is a theme. Maybe we should just get into Batman Begins, right? Because
there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there is, because I think, as you were saying, it's kind of by far the most in-depth evaluation of Thomas Wayne, the impact he had on Bruce, but also the impact that he had on Gotham, because that is one of the big themes that is running throughout Batman Begins, is not just, oh, my parents are dead, but the effect that had on the city that they were almost custodians over, as well as everything else. Yeah. And there were, earlier on we were talking about the scene and who is to blame, and off pod we were talking about, there is a scene when Bruce Wayne is training to become Batman. He's training with Liam Neeson. Dave, what does Liam Neeson say about Thomas Wayne when they are training?
Oh yes, so that's a really cool scene. I think it's the sequence where they're sort of dueling on a frozen lake, right? And the League of Shadows have recruited Bruce from like some prison in the Tibetan mountains or whatever, to be what they're sort of the pinnacle of their force to do whatever their dastardly plot turns out to be. But he says, like, I think he's unpacking Bruce's motivations and Bruce's rage and Bruce's unresolved issues, and he says, "You were not to blame for your parents' death." And Bruce, they carry on dueling for a bit, and he's Liam Neeson in his awesome way, just being all calm and like just swatting Bruce down. And he punctuates it and says, "Your father was," and this this fire burns in Bruce's eyes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle for Liam Neeson. Well, this is calling him Ra's al Ghul. We know he's Ra's al Ghul. For him to come from there, because again, as we were saying earlier on, we are shown in Batman Begins that Thomas Wayne is cool and calm and more empathetic. Yeah. So we've deliberately seen that he didn't antagonize Joe Chill, that the murder happened regardless of him trying to be calm. The murder still happened.
Yeah. All he does is it's when Joe Chill takes a gun from Thomas Wayne and swings it to Martha Wayne because he sees the pearls, and he's like, I said jewelry, because that's after, because Thomas Wayne hands him the wallet. Yes. Joe Chill is obviously nervous, and it goes some way to show that he's maybe not a bad guy, he's not evil, he's not just mugging people for the fun of it. He kind of needs this, and he's a bit shaky. He drops the wallet and swings the gun over to Martha because he wants the necklace too, and that's when Thomas Wayne, he just steps in front of her. He's like, "Hey, no!" And he kind of, Joe Chill panics and just shoots, and then he's like, "Well, shit, now what do I do?" And then shoots Martha as well. Yeah. So it's very much you can't put any blame on Thomas Wayne for it, but he, that sort of, it's like they say, no sudden movements.
Yes, yeah.
Itchy trigger finger.
Yeah, and so what Ra's al Ghul is saying in that scene is, if his father had acted more decisively, had actually tried to take control of the situation rather than leaving control to Joe Chill, then the tragedy wouldn't have happened. It was through cowardice that Thomas Wayne allowed the murder to happen.
Yeah.
Which is kind
Dark.
of interesting. Yeah, it is dark. But, I mean, again, we can compare that to the other versions that we have seen where Thomas Wayne does step forward and try to take control of the situation, and the guy still dies. So...
Yeah. It's a bit like a Groundhog Day situation where if you can imagine Thomas Wayne is reliving this over and over again, no matter what he does, him and Martha always die.
Yes,
So,
they're in almost all iterations.
In all but one, which
Yes.
we know about with Flashpoint, but
Yeah.
that's...
Yeah, we'll
it seems
come
like
on to
there's
that later as well.
Yeah, nothing he can do can really change the outcome of the situation.
Yeah, yeah. Who is the actor who plays Thomas Wayne in Batman Begins? Do you know?
His name is Linus Roach.
What? I have never heard of Linus Roach before. What do you think
I know him.
of...
He's also in... He's one of the... what are those weird race of aliens from the Chronicles of Riddick? With the weird grey armour. He's one of those guys.
Is it the Necrocrons? Something like that?
Necromancers or something.
Yeah.
Necrophilia? No, not necrophiliacs.
something like
Something
that.
with necro.
Lionel Roach
necro.
is a necrophiliac. Let's just put that out there right now.
He's like the emissary to this. He's like the emissary to this race of aliens who are all like powerful warriors, and Colm Fiore is their general, who's like a big dude, and then this scrawny little guy, Linus Roach, is like the guy who swans to planets and goes, what do they call? They just make everyone give in and bow, don't they, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it turns out that he is of the same race as Riddick, and he sort of kills himself out of shame by walking out into that planet of fire, and he's like he just falls and crumbles. Oh, that's a great scene.
Man, that
a great
is
scene in a not a great movie, but I still love that movie. I don't care. I'll put it out there.
Yeah, I've got nothing to hold against you there. I think The Chronicles of Riddick is like an underappreciated movie for what it is.
It is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's no Pitch Black. Pitch Black is a quality alien monster movie, and then Chronicles of Riddick is a decent sci-fi movie. But
I think what's
character.
But yeah, what's really cool about that is that they were willing to completely change the genre of the movie, right? They were like, okay, so we've done like a small horror film. Now we're going to do an intergalactic fucking adventure film about...
But that's the... Sorry, go on.
I was saying basically they're the Borg, right? The necro...
Yeah, they assimilate
necrophiliacs.
Yeah.
They're basically going around like the Borg and fucking everyone to death. But
sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Linus Roach.
I was just going to keep talking about the Chronicles of Riddick. Let's get back to Thomas Wayne. So Lionel Roach, what do we think of his performance as Thomas Wayne in this movie?
I think it's great, but then I just was thinking as you were talking about what Thomas Wayne is typically portrayed as, he was vastly different from any other iteration. Like I was looking at how Thomas Wayne looks in the comics and in the old cartoons. He always looks like Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah.
Which was a good bit of casting on Zack Snyder's part for Dawn of Justice, but casting. I think if Christopher Nolan wanted to sort of change the portrayal of Thomas Wayne to be something very specific, and like you said, to have a very specific impact on the morality of Bruce Wayne and what he would become, it was a really good bit of casting, because that actor does a really good job of portraying that kind of character. Why did you ask? What do you think?
I really like what they do with Thomas Wayne in this one, because from this I think what's really great about the Christopher Nolan movies is that they look at Batman and say, right, what is good thematically about this character, and how can we apply that to a film? Like they don't try and do the Zack Snyder stuff where they just go, okay, we're going to take all of this and then we're just going to throw it on the screen, and then none of it works, right?
Throw it against the green screen and see what sticks.
Yes, yeah, exactly. With Christopher Nolan, he's taken the essence of the Thomas Wayne character and the thematic value of when it's best expressed in the comics, and then built a movie structure around that, which is why I'm generally of the opinion that the best comic book movies aren't the adaptations, they're the ones where you take the truth of the characters and put them on screen. Which is
I agree with you.
Yeah, which I think is the difference between, say, Iron Man and then what's a good example of a counter to that? I guess Dawn of Justice is a perfect example, because although it's supposed to be an original story, you're looking at 5 different graphic novels all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
If they had just taken the essence and truth of the characters, and rather than trying to go, oh, it's every Batman and Superman book you've ever read, then you would have had like, it would have been, a better film. So I really like the Christopher Nolan one again, because this is. I don't look at the Jeffrey Dean Morgan one and go, that guy is a philanthropist doctor, right? You look at him and go, that guy is an ex-boxer who, he had so much money, he used to ride around Africa with an elephant rifle, just, hunting lions or something.
I don't know how much of it is, how much his bias is based on the fact that it's hard these days, I think, just for anyone to watch a film and not recognise an actor and your brain to associate with their previous roles. So I don't look at Jeffrey Dean Morgan and assume that he is a philanthropic, empathetic, nice guy. Like, I look at him and, like, he just looks like someone who can take care of himself. Like, he looks like somebody who would swing a punch at a guy carrying a gun, and not someone who operates more with his heart and with his mind than with his body and his fists. But then also because he still looks like the comedian to me. And he's still got the mustache.
That is a problem. Hard to
detach.
Yeah, but I really like the Christopher Nolan version, or the Lionel Roach version, because we can see him multiple times throughout. And what's really great about that character is there is a strong connection between him and Bruce Wayne, which you don't get in the Ben Affleck Batman ones, because we constantly come back to American Psycho Batman and Lionel Roach. Like, we see Bruce Wayne as he gets older, and he also kind of looks like Thomas Wayne, right, as he grows up. Their appearances are pretty similar, and there is that feeling of what Batman wants to do is to fulfill his family's legacy in that movie, but the more he tries to avenge his parents, the further away he becomes from what they were, and he loses sight of being the good man that his father was as he descends into becoming a ninja bat, right? Like that, and I think that's a really interesting thing. But he wants to help people like his father did, but in doing that, the whole world goes insane.
Yeah, well, and also superficially, you can imagine the Bruce Wayne, the Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's Thomas Wayne are about the same size and shape, so you kind of get that. How did Christian Bale Batman how is he a descendant of Linus Roach and I don't know the name of the actress in Batman Begins, that she has much of a part than Martha Wayne in Batman Begins, but they're like, skinny, scrawny, not very big people.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that's really good about
just
it,
the
I
working
think.
out? Just the working out that's made him so much different?
Yeah, because that really goes to the heart of the character of Batman, right? If your dad is a genetic Hercules, and then you are a genetic Hercules, then we can look at it and go, well, he just comes from a stocky family, right? Whereas when you look at Thomas Wayne, exactly as you're saying, he doesn't look like the kind of guy who's ever been in a fight, because he hasn't, right? He's a billionaire. Like, he's not the kind of guy who needs to take care of himself in any situation. So when this mugging happens, it's like, of course he's not going to resort to violence, because he's never had to resort to violence in his life. This guy probably
he looks like
went
a pacifist.
Yeah, exactly. He probably went to Harvard and, probably donates lots of money to Democratic mayors and stuff like that. It's like, he's not a guy who is prepared to take care of himself, because he's never had to until this one situation that costs him his life. But then you look at Bruce Wayne, and he could have ended up going the same way. And we see, like, in the Party Boy things, we see like where that life could have led him anyway. But we also then see it is through sheer will and effort that he transforms himself into Batman. That's what the whole first movie is about, I guess. But he's not gifted incredible strength and genetic physical prowess. Like, he has to work for it and chuck himself in a prison for, fighting inmates for 10 years and then become, all of that kind of stuff.
Well, I have a question for you then, Dom.
Okay.
Imagine you're young Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
and you're leaving that theater with your parents,
Yeah.
and then the chap with the gun steps out.
Yeah.
Which Thomas Wayne is your dad? I know we talked before about you have a dad and a stepdad, so
yeah, interesting.
I wonder which one you imagine your dad to be. Is your dad the pacifist who will just try and placate the assailant, or is your dad a take action, save your family?
No, I'm gonna say my dad, because my dad has just finished his. He's just graduated as a counselor. He's now a professional counselor, so he is definitely the Christopher Nolan. Thomas Wayne,
Linus
Roach, who will be trying to, I understand where you're coming from. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But then if we look at my stepdad, he's going to be a hell of a lot closer, I think, to the Jeffrey Dean Morgan version. Not only because he really likes The Walking Dead, and so he might feel some connection with that character anyway. But no, I think with my stepdad, there's I don't think he's probably going to go that far, but he would be perhaps more eager to physically confront the situation. I think. What about you? Where do you feel your dad is on that spectrum?
I think it's an interesting one because my dad used to be a policeman, and my dad is a big guy, as I mentioned before. So ex-copper policeman who had a mustache in the 90s while he was on the beat.
Yeah.
So
is your dad Thomas Wayne?
Well, he's alive.
Thank God.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting. Like, yeah, my dad entered this life of law enforcement, even though he wanted to be an artist, and so those kind of two worlds were very much in dichotomy to each other. But he's always good, would always have been the try and play it calm and try and talk his way and calm somebody down. I think he's not Linus Roach, Thomas Wayne, in that Linus Roach, the only way he's getting out of that situation as Thomas Wayne is with kindness. Whereas Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the size of him, he maybe that's not like the worst decision he made. Like he might have done okay at that. In another universe, maybe he got out of it. Whereas my dad could take the pacifistic route, and he would. That's more in his nature. But then if it didn't work, he's big enough and strong enough that he could maybe come out of the other situation fine. Okay. So I always thought that was strange when I was looking at these scenes again and thinking about what because I mean this whole podcast is about daddy issues and about our daddy issues and how definitely these relationships make us feel about our relationships to our fathers. So I think, and what I think the crux of all this research has brought me to is that the Batman Begins death of the Waynes is the one that affected me the most and always did. Partly because of the character of Thomas Wayne in this iteration, but then also partly because they actually spend more time building up that relationship, and they make you care a lot more because you know more about how Thomas and Bruce's relationship works and things like that. So I think I in terms of personality, I'd lean more towards the Batman Begins one, but just in terms of pure mustachioed and stature. It's more Thomas Wayne, but I never really related to that version of Thomas Wayne in terms of my own father.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I definitely agree that I think the Christopher Nolan one is the one that raises the most empathy. Exactly as you're saying, because it's not a montage at the beginning of the film, right? It's not like oh look, they're happy, oh no, he's been shot, who cares? Right, like we spend the time to become invested in those characters. I thought it was really interesting. You raised a point earlier on, but I ended up kind of skirting around it about the pearls, about Martha Wayne's pearls. And obviously, Martha Wayne has a huge impact upon different incarnations of the character as well. But I think the pearls are an easy way of. They've always been present in The Killing. The pearls are as present as Thomas and Martha Wayne. Like they're always there. because again, it's the showcase of their wealth. I think that's one of the big differences with the Christopher Nolan version when they go to see the opera with the bats, is again that establishes Bruce Wayne's fear of bats, but also, and then connects that to the death of his parents. But also, the fact is they are going to see an opera, right? Like, these are rich, privileged people. Like, they're going to see an opera. They're not going to some old school theatre to watch The Mask of Zorro, like common people would.
Like common people, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's strange that that's never been done before. Like, Christopher Nolan and I think Jonathan Nolan, his brother, they wrote that script, didn't they? So it's interesting that that's been that's kind of real glaring hole in their characters. Is that, well, if they're, especially in instances where we only see it in a brief moment, like, you need to convey as much information about these people in a 2 or 3 minute flashback sequence or whatever.
Yes.
And just having them go to the opera makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Versus them going to the cinema.
Yeah, it instantly establishes them as the elite, doesn't it? Like, the fact that they're going to the opera. Yeah, and then like Christopher Nolan is establishing so much in that scene. Like, we're establishing that firstly they're going to the opera, then Bruce Wayne has a fear of bats, then his family die, so we get the interlinking between the fear of losing his parents and his fear of bats, which goes on to inspire him to become Batman. Then also, when Thomas Wayne, when they leave the opera because Bruce is scared, Martha Wayne is like, "Oh, Bruce, what did you do that for?" And Thomas Wayne takes the fall for it, right? Thomas Wayne is like, "Oh no, too much opera gets to my head," or something like that, right? And he's like, "Oh, it got too hot in there," or whatever. So again, that further strengthens the character of Thomas Wayne as a father who he's got his son's back in these situations.
Yeah, exactly. I thought Bruce that, like, Wayne, we don't even need all that. Like, that's a really clever bit of storytelling, because even if this was a flashback sequence, you've instantly established that the kind of empathetic kindness of Thomas Wayne, and just in that moment, like, you could forget all the other scenes with him on, like, the train and him talking about what the Wayne Corporation has done for blah 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 for Gotham. Like, it's all there in that 2 minute sequence, and that's really good. That's what it's a great thing that comes out of having an actually accomplished storyteller make superhero movies.
That is what happens when Christopher Nolan does superhero movies over Zack Snyder does superhero movies, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that. Yeah. That's exactly it. Okay.
Substance over style.
Yeah. That's just such a great movie. Okay, all right. Well, let's jump and talk about another version, because I think if we go to somewhere completely different, again, we were talking about how you are using the death of the parents there. Christopher Nolan is using the death of the parents to influence the rest of the movie. If we jump to Batman 1989, Tim Burton Batman, Michael Keaton Batman, Jack Nicholson the Joker, we see Tim Burton attempt something similar, but that ends up being a bit wacky. Do you remember what happens in that version?
Yeah, well, I think so. It's going back a ways now, and I've just seen a clip of it again recently. But we have a similar, like, all the tropes are there. It's an alleyway. It's dark. The pearl necklace thing happens.
Yeah.
And in this instance, Thomas Wayne does attempt to fight back and defend his family, but it doesn't go well. But it seems more like, one thing I did notice watching it this recently is that whoever this assailant is, this mugger, he seems to be, like, lying in wait for them.
Yes.
Like, it's more of an assassination than just a chance mugging.
Yes.
Right? But then I know that ties in with the plot of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to remind me. I can't remember. Is it meant to be the Joker?
Yeah, it is, because in this mugging, the Joker, the mugger says, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" And everyone's like, "What? What does that have to do with anything?"
It becomes a really iconic quote in cinema history, but then no one knows what it's about. Yeah,
what you, because it doesn't mean anything. He only says it so later in the movie, when the Joker says the same thing, Batman could be like, "Oh, the Joker killed my parents," right? Like,
that's weak. Yeah. I've only seen this version a couple of times, and I never really fell into it. I didn't really ever love it. But then I grew up in the Schumacher era Batman movies, sadly.
Yes.
So I still have a soft spot for Forever, and obviously we can forget about the travesty that was Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
But this one never really struck a chord with me, and I found it a bit hammy. And thank you for reminding me of that, because that's kind of a bit weak,
It
right?
it is lame. And you could see what he's attempting to do here, but it very much plays into what is actually quite a common theme in the comics as well. Is like the Batman created the Joker, right? Like the Batman is the yin and he needs the yang, and so Batman is responsible for the Joker becoming the Joker. That's like always in the origin stories now. And so we see the same thing in the Tim Burton ones, right? Like if the Jack Napier, as he was at the beginning, Jack Napier kills the Waynes, which inspires Bruce to become Batman, who then causes Jack Napier to become the Joker, who then kills the Joker, right? So it's like this idea of loop, like an interconnecting storyline between these two characters, but it's kind of a bit. Yeah, you really feel like if Christopher Nolan had been in there doing that, it would have been better. But his Joker was far better anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, jumping from that one to the Schumacher ones, because those four. So we've got Batman 1989, Batman Returns, which I don't think the Waynes are particularly prominent in. Like we've dealt with the death of his parents in the first one, so it's not.
Yeah,
that it's
I
not
don't think
really
they
brought up again.
I don't think they show it again.
Yeah, then we have Batman Forever, where it is brought up again. This one is one of my favorites, actually. It's a really short scene, but I really like it.
Yeah, I think it's done quite well, actually.
Yeah, I like it because we've got the Nicole Kidman character, Dr. Chase Meridian. Ugh,
One of the worst names ever.
Oh my god. Oh jeez. Do you know they wanted to put that character in Batman Returns? And they were like, oh no, we've got too much going on, so we'll save it for the next one. And you're like, you had like 5 years between those two movies. Did no one think it would be a good idea to change the name of the character between those two films? But yeah, this psychologist is really interested in Batman and what made him become Batman, and then she wants to have sex with Batman, but also she's attracted to Bruce Wayne, of course, not knowing that they are one and the same until, of course, at the end of the movie that she does. And also then the Riddler is sticking blenders on people's heads and sucking their brains out. I'm going to go on record here and say I really like Batman Forever.
I would join you. I quite enjoy Batman Forever.
Because one of the things I really like about that film is it's kind of the opposite of the X-Men thing that I was saying. I get off pod. I think I was saying about how in like previous superhero movies they were almost ashamed of the fact that they were superheroes. You could see that a little bit in the Tim Burton ones, where Tim Burton he doesn't really want to embrace the ridiculousness of the situation, right? Whereas Joel Schumacher is kind of like, get me all the skin-tight latex you can and get me Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah, and also nipples. We need nipples.
Yes. Yeah, okay, I have more of a problem with that. But I feel like Batman Forever is more like... is before Joel Schumacher has indulged his fetish thing, and is more kind of... It's a fair version of the character. It's a better version of Batman than I think the Christopher Nolan one is, because the Christopher Nolan one goes, okay, what if Batman existed in the real world? And Batman versus Superman goes, what if Batman existed in hell? And then this one basically goes, okay, what if we just did Batman as a ridiculous comic book character, the kind of ridiculous comic book character that he is? And he's funny, but not a clown like Batman and Robin. And yeah, I think it's a really fair representation of the character. And the thing I really like is that the Thomas Wayne death scene. It's really short. It's really quick. I think he's making out with Nicole Kidman, and then he has this flashback thing. And the thing I really like about it is how melodramatic it is. He's not. We don't spend 10 minutes doing it. It's like the kiss from a rose falls on like the top of the coffin or something, and then that's basically it, right? But it's like a very short melodramatic scene that just like it's just supposed to be like a baseball bat in the gut to show this is how this character feels and how traumatized he still is.
Yeah, it's kind of like hyper stylized and gothic, which is another very strong element of that movie. And they have that moment right at the end of the flashback when Bruce is standing over the failed bodies of his parents, and there's a spotlight over them.
Yes.
Very much like sort of harking to the sort of circus theme of the movie, and another powerful death scene in that film with the Graysons at the circus.
Yes, yeah, the death of the Flying Graysons. Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't put that together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of like being affected by a father-son relationship in Batman Forever, because like in a lot of instances with Batman, we see it in this in flashback, and it's like, oh yeah, just to remind you, his parents were dead, and he was a boy, and it was tragic, and it led him to where he is now. With the Graysons, we actually have, even though that circus scene is fairly short, they still build up that there is a family element here, and they have a bit of banter. All the Graysons up in the scaffolding stuff at the top of the circus top, and when they die, that is a much more affecting death in that film than the main character's the tragedy in his life.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because it's slow, it's long. They fall from great height, right? And yeah,
it's tragic. And even though Chris O'Donnell looks about 28, he's supposed to be like what?
Yeah, 15 or something. Yeah.
So it's like, it's also, I think you feel it more with him, because then he has that kind of like tragic teenage angst response to it for the rest of the movie, where he's just like, my parents died, and Bruce trying to sort of be a father to him too.
Yeah.
So I've been through this, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like. You know what? I'm gonna go and rewatch Batman Forever, and next time we do a pod, we'll talk about, is Batman Forever actually any good? We'll just put that as a little extra segment at the beginning, as to revisit this film and see if our nostalgia for it actually holds up. Okay, so let's jump away from the movies. I feel we've talked about the movies quite a lot. We have like that, the animated Thomas Waynes. So the first one you mentioned was the Death from Super Friends, or whichever one it is.
The Superpowers team, Galactic Guardians, 1985.
Jesus Christ! I think in this one, Batman is voiced by Adam West again, which is always good.
Is he in the 1985 ones?
I'm pretty sure. Like when we watched that scene, I'm pretty sure it was Adam West's voice when he was doing it.
I don't know about the one in 1985, but I know Adam West did do the voice of Thomas Wayne in Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Oh, and that's great.
Martha Wayne was voiced by Julie Newmar, which is
Catwoman.
Really cool.
That is cool. That is very cool. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, the generally Batman the Animated Series, the Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill Batman series, like, is always regarded as the best Batman, because the same thing I was saying about Batman Forever, right, where Batman Forever takes the character's ridiculous aspects and his darker aspects and then kind of puts them together. The animated series does that perfectly. It's not messing around with nipples or anything like that. It's just like, it is the best Batman, because they do take the character seriously, but they're not afraid to have fun with it.
Because when they show the death of the Waynes in Batman the Animated Series, it's in a sort of a nightmare flashback kind of thing. Did you see it?
Yes.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Where so it's like Batman is back at that scene, and he watches his parents walking towards like a tunnel, like a dark tunnel, and obviously he knows what's going to happen. He's like, "No, don't go in there!" And then this tunnel kind of morphs and grows into this giant gun.
Yeah.
Which then, and then the hammer cocks, and then bang, and he's like, "No!" And it's a bit more, much more nightmarish. That's kind of how I would imagine these kind of things playing out in the human psyche, not just like a memory of exactly how it happened, but through tragedy, especially as a child, your mind would kind of morph it and warp it into something a bit much more disturbing.
Yeah. The animated series is near perfect. I will fairly regularly, if I'm having dinner and I've got nothing to watch, just go, I'll put on an episode of Batman, because you could just drop into any episode and it's going to be good. So I think we can leave that, because it's always perfect. So let's jump to the really controversial incarnation and go to Flashpoint.
Oh yes.
So we'll talk we could talk about the comics, but it's a bit more in detail. So should we just go with, if we'll just put an amalgamation of the comics and the cartoon together and just talk about it more, because
Okay, sure.
it's basically the same. But well, do you want to explain what happens in the Flashpoint comic?
No, I think that's definitely your ballpark, sir.
Great. I was hoping you would say that. Okay.
I knew you would.
Okay. So what happens is.
Oh my god! Here we go.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! The Flash runs back in time to save his mum's murder. In stopping his mum from being murdered, he breaks the time stream because comics. In breaking the time stream, he alters a whole bunch of events that caused the DC universe to evolve into the thing we know it as today. Because of what he does, there is a ripple that causes Kal-El's, Superman's ship, to miss the farm of John and Martha Kent and land instead straight into Metropolis, I think, just leveling Metropolis like an asteroid. But also it causes the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne to play out differently. In the Flashpoint version, when Joe Chill goes to mug the Waynes, he kills Bruce instead of killing Thomas and Martha, which is a really nice twist, because it's kind of incredible that in 75 years of Batman, we had never seen that.
Never seen it go any differently, yeah.
Yeah. It never played out that way. And what we see is that Thomas then goes full Jeffrey Dean Morgan on the mugger, and just annihilates the guy. Yeah, just like he destroys him completely. While Martha is there grieving and crying, and her hands are covered in Bruce's blood as her tears fall onto his corpse. She's like shaking him, like, wake up, and she can't take it anymore. She puts her hand over her mouth to try and stop herself from crying, but as Thomas turns around to comfort her, she looks up, and her tears and her face morph from sadness into hysterical laughter, and the blood has formed a red smudge of a Joker clown smile on her face. And we know that the Thomas Wayne will go on to become Batman, and Martha Wayne will go on to be the Joker in this Flashpoint alternate dystopia.
Which is really cool.
It is really cool. It's one
so
of
cool.
Yeah, they do lots of like the Elseworld comics, which are kind of alternate world comics, and Marvel did a lot of what ifs. And especially recently, Marvel did a new series of what ifs, and they were just lame. It was like, what if Thor had been raised by frost giants instead of by Odin? I'm like, that could be cool.
Who cares?
And then I read it, and I'm like, it's not cool. It was lame. But like this Flashpoint alternate world, like this Thomas and Martha Wayne bit especially is really well done. What did you think about it? I'm pretty sure we watched this film together a while ago.
Yeah, you showed it to me at your house. Yeah. And I thought it was. I hadn't read Flashpoint at that point. I think we were talking about it, and you were like, "Oh my god, there's an animated version. We can just watch that."
Yeah.
So we did, yeah. And I thought it was super cool, and it immediately made me want to go and delve into that universe and read more about the Thomas Wayne Batman and the Martha Wayne Joker, and see all the crazy hijinks they get up to. Yeah, but it's just really cool that they. Because I mean, if they wanted to do a, what sort of, like you say, like a what if kind of thing, they could have made it lame.
Yeah,
it could have been boring, but they somehow managed to do it in a way that actually was exciting and cool, and as a fan, really got me excited for something new. Whereas normally what was I watching? I've been watching The Punisher, the Netflix series of The Punisher, and it's great. Like as like a drama. And it's well written and well acted, and it's really entertaining. But what I'm finding it's lacking is a bit of the few fan moments.
Yes,
like when he was in the Daredevil series, and then he showed up with the Punisher logo on his thing, and like, yes, amazing, finally. And I often find that when I'm watching anything that's based off comic books, I want to see those moments that, as a fan, I go, I recognise that. That's cool. They're doing the thing that we all know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a cool thing. I can't think of a better way to describe it. Really, it's just cool. So when they go off piste, and do something different and try and adapt something and change some law in some quite dramatic way, there's always that fear of like, oh, but what if they ruin the thing that we love, and what if they ruin all of this history? So when they do something that actually is exciting and new and cool, you're like, oh, I feel better about this happening in the future now. Like if it can be done this well, then more power to them.
Yeah, I think what's really, really great about this version of Thomas Wayne in Flashpoint is that we have seen many times how the death of his parents affected Bruce, and the murder, the fact that they were shot is what forced Batman to never use a gun, right? He doesn't kill people because his parents were killed. He hates guns because his parents were shot, and that is one of his defining characteristics. For Thomas Wayne, we see the opposite situation, where because his son was killed with the gun, Thomas Wayne exclusively uses guns, right? Yeah. Like that's one of the kind of interesting things, is that in this dystopia, like nightmare of a world where everything has gone wrong, Batman has changed from being someone who doesn't kill to someone who will almost exclusively kill. And it's a really interesting version because, again, we see Gotham City and what Gotham City has become. And as we know from, say, the Christopher Nolan Batman from other versions, the Thomas Wayne that we know was someone who wanted to build a better Gotham. But in Flashpoint, Thomas Wayne is shown to be running casinos. And like that has a seedy undertone for what Gotham has become. Rather than trying to, save Gotham, Thomas Wayne has embraced the corruption of the city itself and internalized that, and Gotham has reflected the darkness within Thomas Wayne rather than his optimism that we had known he was trying to turn it into before, which I think is really cool. I think that's a really cool a really cool little bit. What's also really cool, what's also really good about it is normally in the what ifs you just jump into the world and you just go, yeah, okay, in this one, Batman's his dad. But in Flashpoint, we're looking from the perspective of Barry Allen, the Flash, because he's gone back in time and changed the world or whatever. So Thomas Wayne isn't the focal point of the book. He's a side character. He's a very prominent side character. But because we're seeing it from the perspective of Barry Allen, who is a good friend to Bruce, like they're Justice League members together. They've been, superheroes together for years and years and years. Barry can't believe what he's seeing. And there's a great bit in the Flashpoint cartoon. I can't remember if it's in the book, but it might be, where Barry Allen is like, you're the Bruce Wayne. You're the Bruce Wayne. You're the James Bond of superheroes. Right, which is like such a cool, because it's so true. Batman is the James Bond. That's why we like him so much. Like he's cool. He's got all the gadgets. He's got an awesome car. There's like beautiful women everywhere. He's like a super spy. But then you look at Thomas Wayne, and he's not like that at all. He's more like, I don't know. He's like a Jason Bourne, but a bad Jason Bourne. It's he's a really cool character because he's just brutality.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just sheer brute force put into a man.
But there's still some element of a question of the morality of it, right? Like you say, Bruce Wayne in the universe that we're all familiar with, he doesn't use guns because his parents were killed, and he doesn't kill because his parents were killed by all that stuff. So in this version, Thomas Wayne, he is brutal because that's what he feels like the criminal world deserves, right? So they don't deserve anything less. So he's not operating as a villain. He's operating still as a vigilante and as a but then sort of more of an anti-hero where he does what he feels is necessary and what he feels is just.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that is a. It raises an interesting question about, in a moment of tragedy, like the killing of someone in your immediate family, as a child, how do you deal with it? How do you adapt? And what do you take through the rest of your life? Versus if you're an adult and your child is taken from you, is the break in your spirit different?
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
say, children can adapt to anything, and I think that's probably quite close to the truth. Whereas if you're already a full-grown adult, you already understand what the world is, and you've brought something into this world that you love more than anything else, and then that is taken away from you in an act of violence.
Yeah.
It would take a real Linus Roach Thomas Wayne to carry on being philanthropic and empathetic after that.
Yeah, completely, yeah. But one way to kind of look at it is to go, because of the it's after the world has been shattered, or whatever, the timeline has been shattered, that Thomas Wayne that becomes the Flashpoint Batman is the same Thomas Wayne as all of the others, right? All Thomas Waynes are the same until they die, and then they splinter off, or whatever. So this is the one Thomas Wayne that survived, so we can assume that he is the same as all previous Thomas Waynes, which means that up until that point, he was still the man. He was still the good Doctor. He was still trying to save Gotham with philanthropy. And then when Bruce is killed in front of him, like, everything he has tried to do for this city has led to, to his son's death. And if that's what it's going to lean to, then I'm just going to shoot everyone. It's like that's what the city. I did everything I could to save this city, but it's beyond saving. And I think that's a really cool version. So, one final thing that I really like about the Flashpoint Batman is that, again, because he's with Barry Allen the Flash, who is a really, he's a hero. He's a good guy. And these two play off each other as an odd couple, really, throughout Flashpoint. By the end, because Barry Allen is going, no, in my world, your son is alive, and he is Batman, and in this world, he's not alive, and you are Batman. We get that moment where, Thomas Wayne begins to realize that this was like Batman was always going to exist. It doesn't matter whether Bruce died or not. Like, they're the same man. So at the end, Thomas Wayne writes a letter to give to Barry, so that when Barry goes back to the real world, in commas, to our Batman, he has a letter for Bruce Wayne, because he knows that his son is alive, and there is suddenly there is a hope in this character that didn't exist before. And so when we end Flashpoint, this character has gone from this just hopeless killer to someone who sacrifices himself to save the world and to give his son another chance. And Flashpoint ends with the Flash in the Batcave, giving the letter from his father to Bruce Wayne. Bruce is what, 35 years old by this point, if not maybe a bit older, and he's reading a lost letter from his father, from his dead father, saying how much he loved him and cared for him and everything. And then you see Bruce Wayne, a tear drops in his daddy issues moment, and then that's the end of Flashpoint. I think that's a really touching, a really great ending to Flashpoint.
It really is, yeah. But then what I wonder is the way the continuity of comic books and how that works, and sometimes one story arc does not lead into another. What does Bruce Wayne learn from that letter, from that moment, and does he change at all? As a character would, having some sort of arc, or does his attitude change? Does he become anything different, or is that in the next run of comics is he just the Batman that we all know, and that's not taken into continuity?
Yeah. Do you want me to spoil a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, I don't mind, but
okay. Well, that's what we're here for, I guess. So, it kind of when Flash did all of this, it reset the DC universe. And I always call it the Marvel universe. That would have been bad. It reset the DC universe, and they started a whole new series where everybody was young again. It was kind of stupid, but the new Batman series was really good. They didn't touch on that letter very much until quite recently, where they did the Button storyline, the crossover between Flash and Batman. Yes, in the Button, they are crossing over the Flash and Batman, and they're crossing it over because of the smiley face button from Watchmen. If you people are listening to this podcast, there is a lot to unpack about comics that you might not know, so I do apologize for that. But they're tying in Watchmen to Batman and to the Flash, and there is this button from the Watchmen books that the Batman has. It's a complicated thing. But in this book, the button, the Flash and Batman and Bruce Wayne end up going back to the Flashpoint world. And in the Flashpoint world, they meet Flashpoint Batman in the Batcave. Because the Flash knows this is Thomas Wayne, they hit it off again. And then it's only one issue that they get together. But in this one issue, you get Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne Batman fighting side by side. And it's a really great issue because they're fighting and Thomas Wayne is using a gun and Bruce Wayne is like, we don't use guns, and you have all of these like amazing moments. And again, the ending to that is perfect. I think as this comes to an end, Bruce turns to his father and says, I just want to tell you I have a son and you're a grandfather. Which I think is a really beautiful character moment, because then we have Damian Wayne, and when you know the story arc of Damian Wayne, who is one of the Robins, Damian Wayne himself starts as a killer and then transitions over to becoming a hero. Like, kind of, he is much more like Thomas Wayne Batman to begin with, but then becomes the hero that he needs to be. Damian Wayne's a really cool character. So we have this, like, oh, you have a grandson, you know, I'm a father moment, which is really beautiful. And then Thomas Wayne turns to his son and essentially says, I did this for you, and you became Batman to honor me, and I am telling you now, stop. He says to Bruce Wayne, whatever you wanted to do, I am proud of you, I love you. Stop doing this because you lose your life to being Batman, and just live your life and be happy. And that is a really great moment, and that does go on to impact what happens later in the comics, because then Batman goes, basically says, you know, screw all of this, I'm going to marry Catwoman. Because they've had this love for so long, but he can't marry Catwoman because he's busy being Batman. You know, it's a whole thing. But
at the end of the Dark Knight Rises, he just gives.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about the Dark Knight Rises, for God's sake. But yeah, that's a really nice, a really perfect kind of daddy issues moment. I think you finally get, you know, a father who lost his son, a son who lost his father, and you have this time together where they can say, you know, you don't have to try and make me proud anymore. You have made me proud. Now go and live your life and be happy.
I see, that's the kind of thing. I came into this recording with, my stance was, I get that this is a huge impactful moment in media in terms of father-son relationships, and that's the whole point of this podcast. But this one never really affected me as things like The Lion King have done.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get into why, and mostly that's because I grew up watching it in flashback. I grew up watching the relationship begin and end in 2 minutes. And how can you gain any kind of how can you feel any kind of affectation for that kind of relationship when it's not being given the time that you need in order to, you know, in order to care about it? And a comparison I would make, and I know this is not a film everyone likes, but I really like Man of Steel. Okay, I think it's great, and that I know. And but when Jonathan Kent dies in Man of Steel, I get choked up every single time, because we've had half the film of a father-son relationship and Clark Kent getting older, and, you know, you get invested.
Yes.
But with Batman, until Batman Begins, which came out in 2005 when I was old, like that, like I didn't, that didn't have it couldn't affect me in that way, because I've already been desensitized to it over years and years and years of just little snippets of bang bang, oh, and now he's Batman.
Yeah.
But having said all that, if there was an on-screen adaptation of that moment you've just described to me, where of the Batmans together and Thomas Wayne offering some kind of fatherly reconciliation, I can imagine myself tearing up.
It's
I was getting a little bit wobbly just listening to you describe it. That is something that I think's been missing from the Batman chronology until that moment.
Yeah, it's a really, really beautiful moment, and we get similar things with like Superman again in Man of Steel. You know, he gets to see Jor-El a couple of times, like through hologram or whatever, but we don't that feeling, that connection isn't really there. But it's Tom King who is writing the Batman in this incarnation, and yeah, it's a really great reunion because then the Flash and Bruce Wayne leave, and because the world is about to collapse basically, and they're like, Bruce is like, come with me, like come with me and live in our world together, and Thomas Wayne is like, that's your world. In my world, all I've seen, you know, is death and destruction. And if I come with you, then that is what I will be bringing with me. So you get this final scene of, you know, the world is collapsing, and Thomas Wayne runs into the destruction, like furiously screaming, because that's the kind of guy he is. And I think that's a really perfect ending for that iteration of the character. There are some other ones, again, the Telltale in the Telltale Batman games. Thomas Wayne is shown to have been assassinated by Carmine Falcone, who is the bad guy again in Batman Begins, the same gangster from Batman Begins. He's been assassinated by Carmine Falcone because the Waynes were working with the Falcone crime family and the mayor of Gotham to keep control of the city. Thomas Wayne was definitely a bad dude in that one. But yeah, you get the story of that one is Bruce Wayne coming to terms with his dad not being the person that he thought he was, which is an interesting storyline.
That's something that I think we can relate to. Like, there's definitely, I don't know if we brought it up in the last podcast. Excuse me, but there's always that moment in a man's life where you kind of understand and see who your dad is as a man, just as a person, as a human being, and not as your father. You know, you can kind of differentiate between those two roles a bit better. Something going back to have Batman go through that kind of a similar thing, obviously in a much more exaggerated. I thought he was a good guy, but really he was a crook, as opposed to just, I thought my dad was a superhero. Turns out he's just a guy, and I'm a guy, and we have that in common. I can empathize a bit better now. But yeah, I think that's kind of cool.
I guess it's lucky for Batman that in the one world where his dad was alive, he was also Batman. like in terms of being able to relate to somebody, like that's pretty convenient.
What if it went the other way, and what if Thomas Wayne became the Joker instead, and then Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne have to face off in that eternal opposition.
That Martha Wayne Joker is a really great version.
Yeah, that's what. I was a little bit disappointed not to see more of Martha Wayne as the Joker in the Flashpoint animated film. And I'd like to seek out more of that. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a cool little thing. We haven't spoken that much about the Marthas today. I know this is more of a daddy orientated
thing.
Yeah, it is a daddy thing. But the Marthas definitely have a big impact. I think Martha Wayne is often overlooked in especially in the movies and stuff. Whereas in Superman, Martha Kent always gets much more of a prominent role because Jonathan Kent always dies. Sometimes, the death of Martha Kent is a little bit, she's normally alive for a little bit longer than her husband. So, Martha Kent is definitely, I think, gets more of a good showing and has more of an impact than Martha Wayne.
Clark's a bit of a mummy's boy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I think Bruce is definitely taking after his father a little bit more. Some often to his detriment, I think. But I think in Man of Steel, Clark is doing the same thing. He's trying to embody the lessons that Jonathan Kent taught him, because he obviously never knew Jor-El until the timeline of the movie. So yeah, I think that's, in terms of a father's thing, that's what I like at Man of Steel for that in that respect. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that brings our discussion of the most murdered man in media to a close, right? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so
Yeah,
Thomas,
it's been a pleasure.
yeah, it has. Thomas Wayne, we hardly knew you, and when we did know you, you were a murdering psychopath. So thank you,
Yeah,
thank you very much for that.
Or a skinny philanthropist.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
We knew him briefly, also.
Okay, thank you for listening to Daddy Issues. Oh, do we have a topic that we want to discuss next week, or have we not decided yet?
I don't think we've decided yet.
Oh, what do
Man
you
of
fancy?
Steel.
Oh, why don't we do a bonus mini episode about Jonathan Kent?
We
Just
can maybe
like
do that, yeah.
a cheeky little extra thing to pan out.
A little addendum.
Great. Okay, then we'll do that. Then we will see you next time for the next episode of Daddy Issues, all about my lesser favorite father in DC Comics, Jonathan Kent. Bye.
Bye-bye.